I'm going to teach you a few simple steps to deal with toxic people. What's up guys, Matty B here and welcome to No Going Back. In the past I've done videos on the 10 signs of toxic people, but what if you do have a toxic person? How can you deal with them? Are there steps you can take? Is it possible to train them from being a toxic person to being a good, healthy relationship? In some circumstances, it is possible, but it does depend on the kind of toxic person you're dealing with. But before we get any further, make sure to hit the subscribe button and go ahead and turn on the bell notification so you can be notified every time we release a new video. Now, when dealing with toxic people, there are two kinds or two categories that I like to lump them into: acute and chronic. Now, an acute toxic person is someone who's picked up toxic habits along the way. They're not necessarily a bad person, but due to some sort of emotional trauma or maybe emotional immaturity, they've got toxic habits. Now, a chronic toxic person is just that. They're someone who is, has been, and likely always will be a toxic person. I've got another video on telling the difference between an acute and a chronic toxic person, which I'll link down below. The 3 steps for dealing with an acute toxic person. Step number 1, establish boundaries. Toxic people are a bit like a toddler or a dog. They're always looking to push the boundaries. They need to know where the limit is of what the behavior is you'll tolerate and what you won't tolerate. So they'll keep pushing until they find those boundaries. So this is where coming in proactively and saying, this is the boundary, this is the line in the sand, this is what I will accept and this is what's unacceptable, and telling them upfront and establishing what is and isn't acceptable. Step number 2, establish repercussions. This ties in with the boundaries that you've just set up. This is basically saying that if you break these boundaries, these are the repercussions that will happen. These are the punishments that will happen if my boundaries aren't respected. This is the threat of what might be taken away if they disregard your boundaries. So that might be something as simple as cutting contact or minimizing contact. Step number 3, reward the good. Just like training a dog, toxic people need firm boundaries. They need to know where they can and can't step past. And when they do something good, they need to be rewarded and praised. So the idea here is positive reinforcement, much like if you were training a dog. So basically, if they do something wrong, for instance, disregard your boundaries, you would establish the repercussion of minimizing contact or cutting contact, which is in essence ignoring them. And then when they do something right, when they respect your boundaries, you make a big deal of it and you encourage that behavior. And soon enough, you'll find that by encouraging the good and ignoring the bad, by not getting drawn into their negative behavior or by cutting contact and just rewarding that good constantly, you'll build more good behavior in kind of like a snowball effect. This is a pattern that I've gone through in my personal life and it's really made a big difference in some of my key relationships. The 1 step to dealing with a chronic toxic person. Now, if you've seen my other video on the different categories of toxic people, you'll understand why a chronic toxic person only has 1 step. And that step is cutting contact. I really wish I had some more insight and some better offerings, but unfortunately, given the nature of these kind of people, the best thing you can do to protect yourself is to cut contact with these people. Now, unfortunately, that usually means an escalation on their part. They'll do whatever they can to maintain contact and paint you as the bad guy. And that includes such things as sending in flying monkeys, love bombing. They'll even go so far as to threaten things like suicide as a way to get you to continue contact with them. Now, I, for one, am not downplaying the seriousness of suicide and mental health issues. I myself suffered from major depression in the past, and I even have videos touching on this topic. But these kinds of toxic people will use mental health and things like suicide as a leverage tool to try and maintain a relationship and maintain contact to keep punishing you. So unfortunately, the very best thing you can do for yourself and for them is to cut contact. And if they are threatening suicide, they need to get professional help. That is not for you to take on, that is not for you to bear. You should contact the appropriate person, the appropriate professional to get in touch with them. But cutting contact and focusing on your health and your well-being is the best thing you can do for you. Now, a relationship with a toxic person is a bit like being on a sinking ship. You have to put your life jacket on first before you help anyone else. And only then should you help others. But be aware that there are some people who don't want to help themselves. They just want to drag you down with them. So in that instance, the best thing you can do is throw them a lifeline in the form of professional help, stand back and take care of yourself. It may seem selfish, but it's actually self-care. Remember, you can't serve others from an empty cup. So just to recap, if it's an acute toxic person, these are the ones that can change. The 3 steps are establish boundaries, establish repercussions, and reward the good. And remember, if it's a chronic toxic person, the only step you can take is cut contact. Now, I would love to know if you guys have any other suggestions, if you have any other tips you've used when dealing with toxic relationships and toxic people and what's worked for you. Let me know in the comments below. And if you like this video, go ahead and hit the like button and make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on bell notifications so you can be notified every time we release a new video. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Until next time, I'm Matty B, and be kind to one another.